Hello, Jeanne Marie Paynel here. How is everybody on this gray Wednesday? I am live here with you from San Diego, and I don't like my books being, never mind. So yes, I am Jeanne Marie Paynel, and I am here weekly to answer your parenting questions. So today, the question is, how can I be firm and kind at the same time? So I will get right into that. First, I just wanted to introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, I am Jeanne Marie Paynel. I am the owner and founder of Voila Montessori, guiding, supporting families to be the very best they can be, and most importantly, to parent the way they want to parent. I think we bring to parenting our own personal baggage, our own childhood and such, and sometimes we want to kind of revamp everything and do it our way. And so all of my expertise is based in Montessori principles and also positive discipline, which I feel merge very well together. And I do some private mentoring, I coach, I also create courses, and really I am, and I apologize, but it is trash pickup day, so I'm going to have to think twice about doing my weekly Q&A on a Wednesday. So a little bit of noise, but hopefully that will be just fine. It's going to pass. So give me a thumbs up that you can hear me, that the sound is working well. Sometimes I kind of am not sure, and I'm going to check myself since I'm alone right this second. Let me just see real quick if my sound is working. I've been having trouble with my little earbud lately, so I just want to make sure. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? I don't know. Can you hear me? Yes, you can. Okay, perfect. Okay, all right. Sorry about that. So again, I am Jeanne Marie Paynel. I am here to encourage and support you to be the very best parent you can be, bringing to you Montessori principles and positive discipline that I believe are a great fit together, a great blend, and they support each other. And so today I wanted to answer the question that I often get is, how can I be firm? Meaning, how can I be respected and know that I'm getting through to what needs to happen and such. And at the same time, how can I be kind and loving? Because I don't like to be a tyrant, or I always feel bad if I scream or if I act too hard. So I just wanted to just go a little bit into that, and that is really the basis of positive discipline. And positive discipline, for those of you who don't know, are a great series of books written by Jane Nelson, and she bases all of this in what we call Adlerian psychology, which is really this idea and this principle that you and I and our children and everybody we come across, we are all born with the desire to have significance and belonging. And that is really the root of all behavior, especially in our children. And sometimes that behavior can be quite challenging to us. And we are kind of at our wits' end. We don't know how to react and such. So this, if you understand that core principle, you're able to look at the behavior in a different way. You're able to understand that the behavior is just a form of communication. It's just the child letting you know, I'm not feeling like I belong. I'm not feeling like I have significance here. And so that is where you kind of have to be the detective and figure out what it is that is going to make them feel like they have significance and belonging. And so the question of, how can I be firm and kind at the same time? First of all, I just want to just briefly talk about, positive discipline and more importantly, what it's not. Because I think that discipline itself gets a little bit confused. When we think of discipline, we think of maybe punishment or timeouts or things like that. All of that is not part of positive discipline. Positive discipline is not about punishments, because unfortunately punishment, we know, will not bring out the best emotional response from anybody, really. Always think of it as how would you feel when somebody would talk to you that way. I'm a firm believer that we need to be talking to our children, no matter what age, the way that we want to be spoken to, the way that we would speak to a colleague, the way we would speak to a sibling, the way we would speak to our parents, to our partner, and such. So to our best friend, it's just or even the grocery clerk. I mean, sometimes I hear the way people talk to children in such a way that I'm a little bit taken aback. And I'll be perfectly honest, I've stepped that line as well when you are at a wit's end, when you don't have the tools. And I would have to say that I probably was like that before I discovered positive discipline and such. But punishment really brings out what we call the 4 R's: resentment, revenge, retreat, and rebellion. Those are not what we want to really nourish in our children, right? So we need to be careful. So what are the alternatives? We could go to the other extreme where we're going to be super permissive and it's like, don't worry, jump on the couch as much as you want, spit in people's faces, whatever. That's the other extreme, and that is not really giving the good message either, because that's just letting the child know, I can only be loved if I do whatever, and it's actually not really, it's almost like neglect. So it's the other extreme. So when we say how can we be firm and kind, that is the balance that we seek. Firm because we are being respectful for the situation at hand. Firm because we are being respectful of our own needs. And yes, as parents and caregivers, we do have our needs and we need to set our boundaries. And kind because we are being respectful of the person in front of us or the person that we're dealing with. And, positive discipline is valuable for not only parenting. I mean, it is about any type of relationships, whether it is with your coworkers, with your partners, with other family members. So it's really that respect of the other person's needs as well, and that is where the kindness comes in. So what we want is we want to make sure that the way we are responding is respectful, and that's where the firm and kind comes in. Also, we want to make sure that does it help the other person, and here especially our children, does it help them to feel that significance and belonging that I mentioned? One example that I always like to think of it is, I remember being told that the child that has the most challenging behavior, and again, these are just labels and your interpretation and such, and it can be different for anybody, but that person often is your best helper, meaning when you are seeing that they are frustrated or they're kind of doing some behavior that is really giving you information that they just need to feel more significance and belonging, that's where you invite them in and say, hey, I really need your help. So you're channeling the energy into something more helpful, where they're going to feel that significance and belonging. So that is, really, really important and to be thinking about. Like when you're being challenged with something, can you think about it and think of how you can involve them in something that you're doing? So that would be, Joy, tu veux bien prendre ça, s'il te plaît? Sorry, my dad is calling, so I let my husband take it. And then, is it effective long term? Because that's the other thing about the idea of, this discipline. It's actually about teaching. It's really about guiding. So it's not about getting things done in the moment and getting these immediate results. It's what is it doing for the foundation, the personality of the child. So it's really about the long-term effects that we want. And it's true that sometimes we will have kind of, spur of the moment kind of punishments or mini punishments or timeouts or whatever, and it might stop the behavior right then and there, but what is it doing psychologically long term? And that's something to be considering, when you're wanting to help guide the behavior in a more positive way. And to me, and I also always like to remind you that our little people are brand new on this planet. So they're kind of clueless and we need to be their guides, right? So we can't expect them to know how to behave, when they come out of the womb. Like they need our guidance, they need our boundaries, they need our guidance, and we need to do it in a very respectful way. And then the other very important thing to be thinking about is, does it teach life skills? I'm so sorry, but I keep on getting cold. Does it teach social life skills and social skills and life skills? Meaning, is it going to teach the child to be respectful, to have compassion, to be a solution, to be able to find solutions for themselves? Because oftentimes when we kind of revert to those, in the moment punishments, it's not really guiding them and empowering them to get those social skills. And that's really the most important thing in this idea of firm and kind. How can I be firm and kind? So an example would be for me, and this is kind of the phrase that I always use in my head at least, is, I love you, and the answer is no. So it's just, it has nothing to do with me liking you, not liking you, loving you, not loving you. It's just, this is the boundaries. And the answer is no. I can see you really want to stay at the park, and it's time to go home. That's it. You just have to be very clear. Limit your words, because we tend to go into long dissertations as to why it's time to leave the park, and children are very matter of fact, and that's it, and it's time to leave the park, and I can see you're really wanting to stay, and it's time to leave the park. We can come back another day, and that's it. So being very, for one, knowing ahead of time what is your limit, what is your boundaries, and what are you willing to give or negotiate. Where the negotiation part, I would be mindful not to get into that trap, because it can you can go down a pretty long rabbit hole with some of our children who are very smart and know how to maneuver all of that. So know ahead of time what you are willing to do, and what the results also of what their pushback is. There's a beautiful example, and I'll wrap it up after this, but for example, this idea of deciding ahead of time. And Jane Nelson actually uses this in her workshops in explaining this. It's this deciding ahead of time, first of all, what you're willing to do, like what is your threshold. And this example is about getting in the car with two children who tend to bicker and start fighting and screaming in the back seat when it's time to go somewhere. Inevitably, that's what happens. So that can get very tiring. It can get, very stressful when you're driving. And so there, what it is that you, as the parent, you decide ahead of time and you let the children know what to expect. So it goes like this. So I've noticed that when we get in the car, you two start, for some reason, you start bickering and pulling at each other's toys or books, and then you start screaming, and I really have a hard time driving and keeping everybody safe. And that's my job, is to keep everybody safe and make sure we get to the places we need to. And I just really have a hard time concentrating when all this screaming is going on in the back seat. So what I'm deciding to do to stay safe is that if you start fighting, I'm just going to pull over and I'm going to start reading my book, and I will wait until you are done, and I will only start the car up again when you tell me that you are done and that we can go. Does that make sense? You have each child kind of repeat, make sure that it makes sense. And the key here is to follow through, meaning that when you get in the car and inevitably they start bickering and they start fighting, you're not going to turn around and go, oh, stop, I told you. No, you're going to pull over, get your book out, and start reading. So just a little caveat here, plan 10 minutes ahead of time if this is something that you do want to put in place. And I promise you that if you do this consistently, without the reminding that this and that, but you just follow through with what you said you would do, and it's just you, right? You're just following through with what you said you would do, then they will trust that you do follow through, and they will be a lot more aware, because we will remind them every time we get in the car that, for us to get on time and so forth, or if you start fighting, I'm going to pull over. But here it's about the consistency and it's about following through. And just make sure that whatever you say, you set yourself up with something that you can realistically do. So if pulling over on the side of the road is not something you can do, think of something else. Say, I'm going to, get off at the next exit and I'll wait in the parking lot here. Whatever it is, right? Make sure that it is something that you can actually follow through. And I promise that this will make them feel that they can trust you, and they will appreciate the consistency, and you will see much results. So I think I'm going to just leave it there. I hope that this was helpful. Again, I am Jeanne Marie Paynel, the owner and founder of Voila Montessori, here to support and encourage you to be the best parent you can be. And I will be back next week with another one of your questions. If you have any questions, please go ahead and post them below. And also know that I have a little PDF, a little free support for you to go along with what we just talked about, to just give you a little bit more positive discipline tips and tools. So it's called my 21 Positive Discipline Tools, and I will put the link below for you. And I will see you next week, and I will see you around here. So if you have any questions, you know how to contact me. Alrighty, bye-bye for now.